Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My wife pushed her fork away and said it. I don't love you anymore. I am Mark 34 and I just stared. My hand stayed around the glass like it froze there. I remember thinking she was joking in some cruel way. My mouth moved before my brain woke up. You're serious right now? This is not a bit. She nodded once, eyes fixed on the table. That single nod hit harder than the words. If I look at you, I'll lose it, she whispered. Her fingers twisted the edge of a napkin to shreds. That stupid movement is burned in my head now. Back then I told myself she was just angry. Bad day, stupid fight, overloaded brain, something temporary. Now writing this I know better, obviously. That was not anger, it was a door closing. I just refused to hear the lock slide. I tried to laugh it off, which sounded awful. Okay, cool, so this is our fun topic tonight. The sound that came out of me hurt my throat. She did not smile, not even a tiny twitch. Mark, stop, she said, and my chest dropped. Her voice was steady, too steady for that sentence. I don't love you the way you think I do. I grabbed my plate and dragged it closer, automatic. No idea why, maybe I needed something solid. The fork scraped loud and she actually flinched. What does that even mean? I asked, almost whispering. My heart pounded so hard my neck felt tight. I knew I should stay calm and rational, whatever. My face felt hot and my hands felt numb. I sounded like someone who already knew the answer. She took a breath and stared at the wall. I don't want men, Mark, I don't want you. The sentence came out uneven, like she rehearsed it. She added the second part too fast, almost tripping. I think I'm gay, I think I've always been. There it was, dropped between us like a bomb. My brain did this stupid split screen thing instantly. On one side, my wife saying she was gay. On the other side, our wedding rings on our hands. I could not hold both things at the same time. You think, I repeated, and I hated my tone. It came out sharp, almost mocking, and I heard it. I mean, I know, she said, rubbing her forehead. I know now, okay, I can't keep pretending anymore. The word pretending made me feel physically sick. I stared at her wrist because I could not look higher. The thought hit me fast and brutal and cold. So you have been faking this the whole time. My voice shook, which pissed me off even more. She closed her eyes like the word faking cut deep. I cared about you, she said, finally looking up. I still care, I just don't feel that way. That way, what does that even cover exactly? My head spun through every kiss and every touch. Everything started to look like staged scenes in my mind. I pushed my chair back and it bumped the floor. The sound was way louder than it should be. Why now? I asked, because I needed a timeline. Why tonight? Why this moment? Why after this dinner? My voice broke on the last word and hung there. She watched me pace to the counter and back. I've been in therapy, she said, like that explained everything. I needed to say it out loud to you. She looked proud for a second, which really burned. Like she just crossed some important finish line alone. I am not proud of my next thought at all. I remember thinking she sounded like she passed a test. Like I was some final step in a personal program. Me, the guy who did not get the study guide. You ever feel like your life skipped a chapter suddenly? I leaned on the back of my chair and stared. So what now? You just walk out and celebrate. My words came out harsher than I meant them. She shook her head quickly, eyes wide, almost panicked. No, I don't want to leave, I don't want that. That line stopped me more than the gay part did. You don't love me, you don't want me, you stay. I repeated it slow like I was reading instructions. She nodded again, hands flat on the table now. I don't want a divorce, I'm not asking for that. For a second I honestly thought I misheard her. The room felt off, like someone changed the gravity suddenly. You just told me you're gay and you stay married. I heard my voice echo in a weird way there. She swallowed hard and kept her eyes locked on mine. We have a good life, she said, almost like a plea. We built so much, I don't want to destroy it. She gestured between us, wide sweep, like listing invisible things. House plans, stability, everything we worked so hard for. She looked like she expected me to agree on the spot. Back then I still thought there had to be a reasonable angle. Some explanation that clicked the pieces into something logical. I was still trying to be the calm partner somehow. Explain how this works in your head, slow, please. My voice sounded tired, and the night had barely started. She took another breath, longer this time, eyes shining. "We can still be a team," she said, almost hopeful. "Partners, friends, whatever you want to call it now." She spoke like someone offering a business arrangement with perks. I felt like she was sliding a contract across the table. "You get someone who cares about you and the bills," she continued. "You don't have to lose everything, no ugly fight, none." She searched my face for any sign of agreement or relief. I just kept seeing the first sentence looping in my head. "I don't love you anymore, but please keep me anyway." That is the part that really twisted the knife. Not the gay part, not even the pretending part, really. It was the expectation underneath all those careful words. She wanted to rewrite the rules without losing any security. I was supposed to nod along and thank her for honesty. I pulled my chair back in and sat very slowly. My legs did not feel steady enough for anything else. "Is there someone?" I asked, watching her face like a hawk. The question left my mouth before I could soften it. Her jaw tightened for a fraction of a second first. That tiny pause is still the loudest thing in that night. She blinked once, twice, then looked slightly past my shoulder. "No," she said, and her fingers curled under the table. "It's not about someone, it's about me finally understanding." The air between us felt thicker after that answer. If you have ever caught someone lying, you know the feeling. Your body notices before your mind catches the pattern. The half beat too long, the eye flick, the breath change. I felt all of that rushing at once in that moment. I did not have proof yet, just a growing certainty. I pushed again anyway because I could not let it rest. "You hesitated," I said, keeping my eyes locked on hers. "That tiny gap before the no, what was that?" She shook her head fast, almost annoyed, almost offended. "I hesitated because I knew you would ask that." I laughed once, short and humorless, just air and anger. "So not only no, but I'm also paranoid." She winced at the word, then reached across the table slowly. Her hand landed near mine, not quite touching, just hovering. That distance of 1 inch felt like a canyon right then. "I am trying to tell you the truth," she whispered. "I am not leaving, I am not cheating, I swear." Each sentence stacked on the last like a thin card tower. One wrong detail and the whole thing would collapse fast. I sat there wondering which card would fall first. Back then I still wanted to believe her somehow. I did not want my whole life to flip in 1 hour. So I nodded once, more to stop shaking than agree. "Okay," I said, though nothing felt okay in my body. That word tasted like I just swallowed broken glass. She relaxed a little when she heard it, which hurt. Her shoulders dropped, her breathing slowed, she looked almost relieved. "You're not alone in this," she said, voice soft but firm. "We can figure out a way that works for both." I had no idea what both even meant anymore. I looked at our plates, still untouched, and then at her. It hit me that we were not finishing this meal together. Not really, not in the way we used to anyway. This table would never feel like the same place again. I knew that much even before the rest came out. Her laughter came from the bathroom before the alarm. I sat up fast, heart pounding, still half in the nightmare from a second ago. It took me a moment to realize it was real and not in my head. Her voice stayed low and quick, like she was trying to keep the sound inside that small space. I stared at the closed door and counted every beat between words. Whoever was on the other end made her sound light. I had not heard that tone in a long time. The toilet flushed, the faucet ran, then silence. She stepped out with her phone in her hand and saw me awake. Her thumb moved fast, one last tap, screen dark. "You scared me," she said, pressing a hand to her chest. I just looked at the phone. She noticed and tucked it behind her back. "Client," she added, too fast, like she had it ready. I should have called her out right then. You know that feeling when your mouth fills with a sentence and you spit out a smaller one instead. "You're up early," I muttered, rubbing my eyes for something to do. She nodded and moved around the room with this weird, careful energy, like we were both guests in someone else's house and did not want to break anything. "I figured we should talk later," she said while pulling a shirt over her head. "Not before work, tonight maybe." The word talk felt heavy now, not neutral. I asked what time, like it was a meeting. She picked a time, 7 after dinner, after we pretended to have a normal day. That whole day crawled and jumped at the same time. At work I stared at screens and signed things I barely read. I moved my mouse, answered emails, nodded in quick meetings. People joked around and I laughed in the right spots. Inside my skull, everything replayed in a loop and kept adding new possible endings. Every small break I grabbed my phone and ch. Checked it for messages from her, nothing, not a single text. My chest tightened more with every empty refresh. I told myself it was good she did not message, that it meant she was thinking things through and not just blurting stuff. Looking back, I know I was just desperate for any sign that she still saw us as a team. I even typed out a long message once, something calm and reasonable about how we could figure this out. I stared at the words, hated how needy they sounded, and erased the whole thing. The blinking cursor felt like it mocked me. Walking into the house that evening felt like stepping back into a crime scene. Everything looked normal, which somehow made it worse. She moved around the kitchen, busy with something on the stove, phone on the counter face down. She greeted me like nothing was off. "Hey, food's almost done." No hug, no kiss, just a quick glance at my face to gauge the damage. I leaned against the counter and watched her stir. "You wanted to talk at 7, I reminded her. She checked the time on the stove and gave a short nod. "We'll eat first," she answered, still focused on the pan. "Easier if we're not starving." That line almost made me laugh because hunger was the least of what I felt. We sat across from each other again, same spot as the night before. I took one bite and realized I could not swallow. My throat clenched and the food went cold on my tongue. I lifted my water and forced it down. She watched me carefully, then set her fork down with this rehearsed little motion. "Okay," she started, palms flat on the table. "We need some structure." That word hit me wrong, structure, like we were planning a work project. "Structure for what exactly?" I asked, pushing my plate away. My voice came out calm, but my knee bounced under the table. She inhaled slowly, like she was about to present slides to a boss. "For how this looks going forward," she answered, "so we don't hurt each other more than necessary." The phrase "going forward" made my stomach twist. "So there is a plan already," I said, eyes narrowed on her hands. She laced her fingers together, then unclasped them quickly. "I talked to my therapist," she added, which explained the sudden formal tone. "There are couples who stay together even when attraction changes. They make new agreements, different kind of partnership." "Different how?" I asked, each word clipped. I was not going to fill in blanks for her. She shifted in her seat, eyes flicking up to mine then back down. "We still share a home," she began. "We split costs, we show up for each other, it's just not romantic in the old way." Her voice softened on that last part, like cushioning a blow. It landed anyway. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "So roommates with joint accounts," I answered. She flinched at the word roommates. "It doesn't have to feel cold," she replied, hands tightening again. "We have history, we have loyalty, we can still be close." She was piling reasons on the table like chips, waiting to see if I would match them. Back then I still half believed loyalty meant the same thing to both of us. Now I see how naive that was. I stared at her and tried to picture hugging her without expecting anything more. My mind refused to build that image. The idea of lying next to her like some neutered friend made my skin crawl. "And what do you get?" I asked, because I needed to hear her say it. She looked up, eyes shining with some mix of fear and hope. "Security," she answered. "Stability, someone who knows my whole story. I don't have to blow up my entire life to be honest about this part." She tapped the table for emphasis. "We both keep a lot of what works." That last sentence stung. The assumption that this still worked for me felt almost insulting. I rested my forearms on the table and leaned in. "You're describing a very good deal for you," I said. "You get safety, you get a built-in support system. What do I get besides the privilege of being understanding?" She recoiled like I had slapped her. "You get not losing everything," she shot back. "You get me still here, you get us not destroying each other in court." That was the first time she mentioned lawyers without saying the word. It hung there anyway. I stared at her and tried to find the woman who used to reach for my hand under the table in crowded restaurants. All I saw was someone negotiating terms. "So those are the choices," I asked quietly. "Be your non-romantic partner or set off a bomb?" She did not answer right away, which told me more than any speech would have. Silence stretched between us, buzzing like a bad electrical wire. She finally exhaled and rubbed her face. "I am not trying to trap you," she said. "I am trying to give us options." Her voice cracked on the last word and she pressed her lips together. "I thought you would want that, a middle path." There it was, the expectation that I would be the reasonable one even now. I pushed back from the table and walked to the sink. My age has needed something to do, so I ran the water and started rinsing dishes that were still half full. "I need you to be straight with me," I said, staring at the stream instead of her reflection in the window. "Does options include you dating other people while we stay married?" The question sounded insane and completely logical at the same time. Behind me the chair creaked. "I am not thinking about that right now," she answered, too fast, too polished. I turned, drying my hands on a towel that suddenly felt rough. "That is not a no," I replied. My chest felt tight again. "That is a placeholder sentence." Her jaw worked and her gaze slid away for a second. "I don't know what I will need yet," she admitted. "I just know I can't go back to pretending nothing changed." There it was, a crack in the careful script. My skin prickled. "So I am supposed to sign up first," I said. "Then you figure out the rest later." She shook her head hard. "No, we would decide together," she insisted. We set boundaries, we move slowly. There are couples who do this without destroying everything. The word boundaries made my temples throb. I walked back to the table and sat down again, slower this time. Have you already looked that up? I asked. These couples. She hesitated, then nodded. There are forums, she answered. People in mixed orientation marriages who stay. They talk about schedules and rules and communication. Some of them are actually happy. Her voice warmed a bit at that last part, like she could see herself there. That detail hit me in a strange way. While I had been replaying her confession on a loop, she had been researching lifestyles. She was already browsing possible futures while I was still stuck in the wreckage of the present. I felt this ugly mix of jealousy and betrayal, not just of some maybe partner, but of that invisible community that had her attention now. And where do I fit in their stories? I asked. She looked confused, then guarded. You would be the partner who knew, she replied. The one who chose to stay, the one who understood this was not personal. My laugh came out sharp. Not personal, I repeated. I share a bed with you, but this is not personal. She opened her mouth, then closed it, and her eyes filled fast. I don't know how to say any of this without hurting you, she whispered. Every version feels cruel. She wiped at her cheeks and let out a heavy breath. I wish I was different. I wish I could force attraction back. I can't, so I am trying to find a way where we both survive this. Her shoulders slumped like the speech drained something from her. Back then, part of me still wanted to protect her from the consequences of her own choices. I hated that about myself even as I felt it. What exactly are you asking me right now? I said, trying to anchor us to something clear. Put it into one sentence. She stared at me, eyes red, and finally spoke. I am asking if you are willing to stay married while we reshape what that means. The room seemed to tilt a little. My fingers dug into the edge of the table. That was the moment I realized she had already decided her answer. She was not brainstorming, she was pitching. And if I say no, I asked. I needed to hear that part spelled out. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Then we separate, she replied. We talk lawyers and assets and all of that, and we do it fast before this gets uglier. There it was, the other path laid out neat and brutal. No middle shade. Stay and accept the downgrade, or walk and detonate the life we built. At least that is how it felt from my side of the table. I can admit now that my pride did a lot of talking in my head during that pause. Pride and fear took turns steering. I did not answer her that night, not directly. Instead, I stood up and gathered the plates, stacking them in a shaky pile. I need time, I said, more than one dinner and one breakfast. My voice sounded flat to my own ears. She nodded slowly, relief and worry mixing on her face. Okay, she replied quietly. We can take a few weeks, no big decisions yet. On the surface, that sounded fair. Inside, it felt like a countdown started. Weeks of living next to someone who had one foot already in some new identity, some new world, maybe some new person. Weeks of watching every tiny behavior for clues. Weeks where every silence felt loaded. I did not realize then how quickly those weeks would compress into something sharper. That night in bed, the distance between us measured everything. We lay on our usual sides, but it felt like opposite ends of a bridge that had half collapsed. I listened to her breathing even out. Mine refused to settle. At some point, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, then again, the light flashed across the ceiling. She reached over, screen angled away from me, fingers moving in short bursts. You working tomorrow? I asked into the dark. My voice made her jump. Yeah, she answered, still facing the phone. Big day? She put it back down, face down again, and rolled to her other side, her back to me. The mattress dipped with the shift. I stared at the outline of her shoulder and felt something crack that I could not name yet. Those were the first small signs that there was more going on than a sudden self-discovery. A laugh behind a closed door. Research already done, messages late at night that had nothing to do with clients. At the time, I tried to file them under coincidence, stress, adjustment, anything but what they actually were. Looking back now, this was the chapter where the rules quietly changed without my consent. Not when she said the words at the table. That was the explosion. This was the slow rerouting after. She was already building a life that did not need me in the same way. She just had not told me the full conditions yet. Her phone lit up on the counter while I rinsed a plate. The screen woke with a long preview and the words jumped out before I could look away. I hate sleeping without you, wish you were in my bed. My hands stopped under the water. I watched the bubbles slide over my fingers while my brain tried to deny the sentence I had just read. Then I grabbed the phone like it burned. The contact name was a single first name I did not recognize. No last name, just a small heart next to it. Another bubble appeared at the bottom of the screen. Call me when he leaves for work. My throat went dry fast. I wiped my hand on my shirt and kept staring as if the text would change if I looked long enough. Behind me, the front door opened. Keys hit the little bowl by the entrance. Hey, she called, kicking her shoes off. I locked the phone without thinking and placed it back exactly where it had been. The whole move felt slow and heavy, like pushing a car in neutral. My heart hammered so loud that her voice sounded faint. She walked into the kitchen, cheeks a little flushed, hair slightly messy in that deliberate way. "You're home early," she said, dropping her bag near a chair. I watched her glance at the counter just for a flash. Her eyes checked the phone before they checked me. That tiny priority order told me everything I needed. "I had a light afternoon," I answered, keeping my face blank. "Thought I'd beat traffic." My voice sounded calm to my ears, which surprised me. Inside, everything buzzed like someone had plugged me into a socket. I stepped aside so she had a clear view of the phone and waited to see her next move. She reached for it instantly. Not casual, not slow, immediate, thumb on the screen, quick swipe, then another. "How was your day?" she asked, gaze glued to whatever she was clearing. Her tone barely changed. She just kept deleting or hiding or whatever before I could see anything else. "You got some sweet messages," I said. My words came out smooth as glass, which scared me. She froze for a fraction of a second, then relaxed her shoulders on purpose. "Work stuff," she answered, too light. "Client freaking out about a deadline." She locked the phone and slid it into her pocket, all in one practiced motion. "At your job, people beg to share a bed with their consultant?" I asked. I turned the faucet off slowly. The silence after the water stopped felt brutal. She blinked once hard. "What are you talking about?" she asked, voice a shade tighter. Her hand slipped into her pocket, fingers pressing around the phone like a shield. "I saw the preview," I said, while I stood right here doing dishes. My finger tapped the counter where the phone had been. "Wish you were in my bed. Call me when he leaves." I repeated it word for word. Each syllable felt like dropping a brick between us. Her jaw clenched. That tiny twitch gave her away before she spoke. "You went through my phone," she accused, eyes flashing. That move right there still annoys me when I remember it. Classic shift. Make me the intruder so she does not have to address what I actually saw. "I watched a message pop up in plain view," I replied. "That is not snooping, that is gravity." My hands were shaking now, so I laced my fingers together to keep them still. "Who is she?" The question hung in the air, heavy and blunt. I did not dress it up. She exhaled through her nose, then turned to the fridge like she needed something to do. "A friend," she said, opening the door. "From work." Bottles clinked as she moved stuff around. "She knows what I'm going through." That line made my chest tighten, not the friend part, the she knows part. "So she knows you told your husband you are gay?" I asked. "She also knows you still sleep in his house and share his bed." I watched her shoulders. They rose, then dropped. She shut the fridge with more force than necessary. "You are twisting it," she muttered. "You always do that when you are scared." Hearing always stung more than anything. It turned this current mess into a pattern where I was the problem. "I am not twisting the words on that screen," I said. "They were pretty dire." I paused, then added the part that had been scratching at me since I read it. "Wish you were in my bed does not sound like support group talk." She spun around and leaned back against the fridge, arms crossed tightly. "I needed someone to talk to who actually gets it," she said. Her gaze drifted off toward the hallway. "She came out years ago. She understands this whole thing." Her fingers rubbed small circles on each elbow, self-soothing. "I understand it too," I answered. "You just will not actually talk to me about the parts that matter." My voice cracked on the last word, and I hated how that sounded. "You skipped from confession to contract and left out the middle chapter." Her mouth twitched like she wanted to argue with the metaphor but could not find a better one. "There is no middle chapter," she said. "I told you I am not attracted to men." She pushed off the fridge and took a few steps toward me. "That includes you. That is the whole ugly truth." Her eyes were bright and not from happiness. "She is just someone I can be honest with." "People you are honest with usually do not ask you to sneak around me," I replied. I pointed toward her pocket. "Call me when he leaves." That line was not subtle. Her lips parted, then closed again, and she swallowed hard. For a second she looked like a kid caught stealing, then her posture shifted into something more defensive. "She meant you would be busy," she said. "Not like I am hiding some affair." The word hung there, daring either of us to claim it. "We talk a lot. Sometimes we vent about how people in our lives might react. That is all." She shrugged, but it looked forced. At the time I almost swallowed that explanation. I can admit that now. You ever want something to make sense so badly that you start sanding off the sharp edges? That was me in that kitchen. "Then why the bed comment?" I asked. "Explain that part clean." My palms were sweaty and I wiped them on my jeans. She glanced down, then back up, cheeks flushing. We got close, she said quietly. Emotionally, it feels safe with her. We joke, we flirt, it is not physical. She watched my face as she picked each word. I would never actually cross that line while I am still with you. I laughed once, short and bitter. I think we are looking at very different lines, I answered, because from where I stand, you already shoved one foot over it. Her eyes filled instantly and she took a step back. So I am not allowed to have any connection now, she asked. I am just supposed to sit here alone with this and never lean on anyone. There it was again, the way she framed it, me versus her right to feel seen, no mention of the promise between us, just my reaction framed as clingy and controlling. You can lean on people, I said, but romantic texting with hidden timing is a different category. I touched my chest with my knuckles. You did that while I was still trying to process what you dropped on me. She opened her mouth, closed it, then walked around the table. The movement had this restless energy, like she wanted to climb out of her own skin. I knew you would freak out if I told you about her, she said, and I needed one place where I did not have to manage your feelings too. She stopped and stared at the window. She lets me be honest without exploding. That line hurt more than the bed message for some reason. I get that it sounds childish, but hearing that this stranger got her unfiltered side while I got the curated version made me feel like the side character in my own story. So I am the one who explodes, I asked, not the guy whose marriage just got turned inside out. She winced. That is not what I meant, she said. Look, this is messy for both of us. I am not handling everything perfectly, but you watching a notification then grilling me like a cop does not exactly help either. Her fingers dug into the back of a chair, knuckles pale. At that point, I knew the conversation was circling, but I could not let it go. I needed clarity even if the answer hurt. Are you in love with her? I asked. Whatever her name is, say it out loud. My stomach flipped while I waited. I was half hoping for a blunt no and half bracing for the opposite. She lowered herself into the chair and stared at the table. I care about her, she murmured, deeply. She makes me feel like I am not broken. She makes me feel seen. Then she looked up at me. I do not know if it is love yet. I know I think about her a lot. There it was, not a clean answer, but close enough to a yes to make my vision blur. I gripped the back of the chair across from her and stayed standing because sitting felt too vulnerable. And you want to explore that while we keep the marriage, I said. That is where all this is heading, right? Her silence lasted just a breath too long. I want to explore who I am, she finally replied. She is part of that right now, yes, but I also want to keep what we built. I do not see why it has to be one or the other. At the time, that sentence sounded insane and weirdly calm. Now I understand that she had already rehearsed that idea somewhere else, probably in those messages, probably with her. I took a slow breath because I could feel myself tipping into full rage. Spell it out, I said. Do not make me guess. What does your ideal setup look like? She straightened up a little, like we had reached the main slide in this presentation she had been building. We stay married, she began. We keep our home, we split bills, we show up for family events, we are a unit in every way that matters on paper. She stopped, then added the part that changed everything. And I date women discreetly, ethically, with rules that we agree on. I stared at her, completely thrown by the word ethically. My mouth actually dropped open. You want an open marriage, I said. Saying it out loud somehow made the room colder. She nodded once. A specific kind, she answered. I am not interested in men. This is not me wanting to run around with everyone. I want the space to see where this part of me goes without destroying our entire life. Do you hear how one-sided that is? I asked. My voice rose despite my effort to keep it steady. You get to discover your brave new self with your crush while I sit here and keep the ship steady. I tapped my fingers on the chair in a fast rhythm. What do I get besides the honor of being the understanding husband? You get stability, she replied. You keep your home, your routines. We do not enter a war. You know where I am at night. You are not blindsided by some secret divorce plan in 2 years. Her tone moved into this reasonable register that made me want to throw something. You already blindsided me, I snapped. That part is done. You cannot sell me honesty as if the damage has not already been done. My chest felt tight again, breath shallow. Also, you keep throwing around words like stability and structure. None of those sound like love. Her eyes glistened, but she held my gaze. Love is not enough, she said. Look at all the couples who tear themselves apart even when they still care. We can choose something different. We can be smart instead of dramatic. That last word hit me like an accusation. Dramatic, as if my pain was performance. I walked away from the table and paced to the living room, then back. My feet needed movement or I was going to scream. Do you want me to see other people too? I asked. Is that on the table, or do I just get to watch you build a whole other emotional life while I keep the lights on? Her face shifted at that, and for the first time she actually looked thrown. If you needed that, we could talk about it, she said slowly. The sentence sounded like she was reading it off a pamphlet. I just assumed it would be more complicated for you, with men, with straight women. She shrugged one shoulder. It might not be fair to introduce more variables. Hearing her talk about my hypothetical future affection as variables made me feel weirdly small, like my desires were just an obstacle in her spreadsheet. So your needs are courageous self-discovery, I said. Mine are messy obstacles. My voice dropped lower. Good to know where I land in this layout. At that moment, I realized I was not just fighting for the marriage. I was fighting for the version of myself she had already downgraded in her mind. The reliable one, the safe one, the one who would absorb the impact so she could chase this new chapter guilt-free. She walked over and stopped a few feet away, hands at her sides now empty. I am trying to build something where we both survive, she said, softer. I still care about you. I do not want to lose you. I just cannot give you what you want in bed anymore. I cannot fake that one more day. Her voice cracked and she swallowed it back. And I am supposed to just turn that part of me off, I asked. Flip the switch and become your roommate who pays half. My laugh came out rough. I still want a partner who wants me. That does not vanish because you realize something about yourself. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. I am not asking you to make a decision tonight, she said. I am asking you to at least consider it. Talk to someone neutral, a therapist. Read what other couples have done. Do not just say no because it sounds strange. She took a tiny step closer. Promise me you will not decide while you are this angry. I did not promise. I did not walk out either. I stood there in the kitchen, stuck between those poles. It felt like standing in front of a door that opened onto two equally bad views. Behind one, I lost almost everything in a clean cut. Behind the other, I stayed and slowly watched her hand slip further into someone else's. At the time, I told myself I needed more information before choosing, more facts, more proof that this was as lopsided as it felt. I did not know yet that the proof was already peely. NG up on that little screen in her pocket. I did not know that the next thing I read on it would snap whatever belief I had left in her version of ethical. I opened her messages while she paid for coffee. Her phone sat on the table, unlocked from a tap she had just made. My thumb slid to the thread with the heart without thinking, like my body already knew it would hurt. The top of the screen showed dates. Not this week, not last week, months. I scrolled up and felt my pulse slam harder with each little blue timestamp. There they were. I still smell you on my skin. Month and day, way before the night she announced she did not love me. Another line. Next time I am not waiting 3 weeks again. My breathing went shallow. I scrolled faster, fighting the urge to throw the phone in the trash. Behind me, I heard her laugh at something the barista said. My grip tightened. One older message punched through the noise in my head. Can you sneak out Sunday after he falls asleep? Same name, same heart, same pattern. The room tilted for a second. This was not some new emotional crush. This had been an ongoing thing while I walked around clueless. Hey, do you want anything else? She called from the counter. Her voice floated over the low hum of people talking. I snapped the phone shut and set it down exactly how it was. Screen down, same angle. I pulled my face into a neutral mask and turned. I'm good, I answered. My heart felt like it was slamming against my ribs to get out. Even now, telling this, I feel embarrassed about one thing. I did not confront her right there, in public, with proof on the table. I chickened out. I told myself it would be better in a controlled setting, at home, or better yet with a therapist present, somewhere she could not flip the script so easily. You can call that smart or cowardly, depends on the day. That night, she sat on the couch with her laptop open. My therapist has a slot tomorrow for both of us, she said. I asked if she could see us together. I watched the way she said my therapist, like I was joining her on her turf. You okay with that? She watched my reaction over the top of the screen. I almost laughed. I was more than okay with it. I needed a witness at this point. Yeah, I said, book it. I grabbed my phone and checked my work calendar. What time? She gave me the time already typed into her email. She had set this up before asking. That detail hit me later. At the moment, I let it slide because I wanted the appointment. The office was in one of those anonymous buildings outside downtown. Neutral hallway, generic waiting room, that kind of place. We sat on opposite ends of a small sofa, not touching, not even close. A woman opened the door and called her name. We went in together. Inside, the therapist gestured toward 2 chairs. I know both your names, she started, looking between us. Today I want to hear how you are each experiencing this shift. Shift. That word again, soft language for a concrete betrayal. I kept my face still. My wife spoke first, of course she did. I told him, she said. I told him I am not straight, that I still care about him, but I cannot keep pretending I am attracted to men. She glanced at me on that last part. The therapist nodded slowly, taking it in. How did you receive that? The therapist asked, turning to me. I heard my marriage crack, I answered. Then I heard her propose a downgraded version where we act married while she dates someone else. I forced myself to hold the therapist's eyes, and I found out she has already started that part. My wife's head snapped toward me. What are you talking about? She asked, voice tight. Her fingers dug into the arms of her chair. The therapist looked between us, eyes sharp now. Tell me what you discovered, the therapist said, not soothing, direct. That actually earned some respect from me. I saw messages, I said, on her phone from the woman she has been leaning on. My throat felt hot, but I kept my tone even. They talked about missing each other's bodies, meeting up when I was gone. This has been going on for months, not weeks. My wife shook her head fast. That is not true, she said. He is exaggerating. We got close emotionally, yes, but it was not physical until very recently. She looked at the therapist for backup. I told you that in individual sessions. That line annoyed me more than the denial. She was using her private work with this woman as a shield. The therapist held up a hand. I am not here to take sides, she said. I am here to understand the timeline clearly. When did any physical intimacy begin with this other person? Her question landed like a hammer, no fluff, just the core. Silence stretched. My wife stared at the floor, her foot bounced. Her fingers twisted her ring, every little movement screamed guilt. We kissed once, she muttered. Months ago, before I told him, it freaked me out and I pulled back. It did not go beyond that until Recently when? I asked. My voice came out low. Give an actual number. The therapist glanced at me, then back to her. Answer him, she said gently. Approximate is okay, but be honest. My wife swallowed hard. A few weeks ago, she said, after I told him, we met up and it got more intense. Her face flushed. It only happened twice. I stared at her and saw the exact text in my memory. Next time I am not waiting 3 weeks again. That line bounced around my skull. Twice did not match the math. I think the therapist picked up on that gap too. Your partner is reacting strongly, she observed. I am guessing those numbers do not match what you saw. I nodded once. My hands were clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. The messages mention regular meetings, I said. Missing each other's bodies, not just one time. They talk like people with a routine. My wife's eyes were shiny now. Online talk can sound intense, she said quickly. People say things in chat they do not fully do. She exhaled hard. I know I crossed lines, but I was not living a secret second life for months. It was confusing and messy and I did not handle it well. That last part at least sounded real. The therapist leaned forward. From his perspective, he thought you were still fully partnered with him while you explored feelings in therapy, she said. From what I hear now, you were also building a romantic connection with someone else during that time. Do you understand how that feels like deception, even if you were struggling? My wife nodded slowly, tears slipping down. Yes, she whispered. I know I do not expect a free pass. She looked at me directly. I am sorry, I should have admitted the physical part sooner. Her voice broke on sooner. Back then, hearing that apology did not soothe anything. It almost made me angrier, because hidden inside that sorry was a smaller truth. She was not sorry about feeling what she felt. She was sorry she got cornered into naming it. There is a big difference. The therapist turned to me. What do you need to know right now? She asked. Specifics, not general. That question caught me off guard. No one had put it like that yet. I stared at a spot on the rug and forced myself to pick something concrete. I need to know when the marriage actually ended for her, I said. Not the date she picked to tell me, the date in her head. My voice trembled on the last word. That answer would change how I saw every memory. She sat there silent, counting breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I checked out as a wife a long time before I dared say it, she answered finally. When I started dreading intimacy with you instead of craving it. When I realized I only felt alive around women I met. She shook her head slowly. I did not act on it then, but I stopped being fully present with you. That hurt in a different way, not sharp, heavy, like discovering the house you live in has been slowly tilting for years and you never noticed. I thought back to nights where she turned away with some excuse. Headache, exhaustion, work stress. At the time I bought every reason. Sitting in that office, I watched those scenes replay with a new filter. You know that feeling when you look back at an old conversation and suddenly see all the subtext you missed? That hit me over and over as she talked. Late girl dinners, weekends where she said she needed a solo break. I remembered one Sunday in particular. She had come home around midnight, smelling like a different place, hair slightly tangled, cheeks bright. I asked if she had a good time. She grinned and hugged me quickly, then disappeared into the shower. Back then I thought, cool, she has fun with her friends. Now in that chair a different thought slid in. Had that been a date? The therapist watched my face. What is going through your mind right now? She asked. Her voice stayed calm, but her eyes tracked every micro flinch. I let out a low breath. I feel stupid, I answered. Like I missed 100 little signals because I trusted the story she gave me. I rubbed my thumb over my knuckles, and I feel like I have been grieving a marriage that she left months before she told me. My wife covered her mouth with her hand. Her shoulders shook once. That is not fair, she said through her fingers. I was still there, I still cooked, I still showed up, I did not abandon you. The list sounded weak even as she spoke. Tasks, not connection. That is the part I am wrestling with, I said. You did all the visible duties, you checked all the boxes. You just stopped being my partner in the one category that made this a marriage instead of an arrangement. My voice cracked and I let it. The therapist did not interrupt. Can both things be true? The therapist asked softly. That she was struggling with her identity and handled it badly, and that you are deeply hurt by the secrecy and overlap, not one villain and one victim, just two people in Syria. As pain. Logically, yes, both could be true. Emotionally, I was nowhere near that calm place, but hearing it framed that way did manage one thing. It stopped me from storming out right then. I stayed in the chair instead of slamming the door. That mattered later. When the session ended, my body felt drained, like I had run a marathon in one spot. We walked out to the parking lot without touching. She fumbled with her keys, dropping them once. I picked them up and handed them over. Our fingers did not brush. That felt wrong. In the car, I said, we are not done. My voice probably sounded colder than I intended. She nodded and unlocked the doors. We sat there with the engine off, just breathing in the cramped silence. I did not lie about everything, she started. Her hands were tight on the steering wheel even though we were not moving. It really did stay mostly emotional for a long time. Mostly is doing a lot of work in that sentence, I answered. You told your therapist it was a kiss and then 2 times. The messages talk about smells and routines and weekends. I turned toward her fully. What's the real number? She closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the headrest. I do not know anymore, she said. 3, 4, maybe more. It blurred together. Every time I told myself it was the last and then I missed her again. She laughed once, a sharp broken sound. I know how awful that sounds. That was the moment something inside me hardened, not because of the number actually. 3, 4, 10. At that point the count did not change the betrayal. It was the part where she admitted she did not know. That told me this had not been a single slip. It had been a pattern she let grow. So when you sat across from me at our table, I asked slowly, and told me you were gay but still wanted to keep the marriage intact, you had already slept with her multiple times. Each word felt heavy. You were asking me to sign up for a situation that was already real in your life. She turned her head to face me, eyes red, voice raw. Yes, she whispered. I did not know how to say it without losing you on the spot. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. I thought if I eased you into it, you might see why I needed both for a while. There it was, the strategy laid bare. Ease me in. Let me adjust to being the downgraded partner while she kept the new relationship humming in the background. No wonder her plan sounded so smooth when she first pitched it. She had been living the beta version already. I looked out the windshield at the blank wall in front of the car. You did not give me a chance to say yes or no before you made that choice, I said. You just did it and hoped I would retroactively approve. My voice came out quiet, but it landed heavy in the small space. She did not argue. That silence told the truth better than any sentence could. We sat there, both breathing hard, both knowing we had crossed some invisible line in that parked car. The illusion that this was just about orientation and not betrayal died right there. I wish I could say I walked straight into a lawyer's office the next morning. I did not. I went home with her. We ate dinner in near silence. We moved around each other like coworkers in a break room, but the part of me that still believed we could negotiate our way out of this had taken a serious hit. That night, lying in the dark again, I stared at the ceiling and counted all the lies by omission I now knew about. Each one felt like a knot in a rope. By the time I reached the end of the list, that rope looked like something I could not untangle anymore. I did not know it yet, but Chapter 4 was really the end of me trying to justify staying. The rest was just waiting for my actions to catch up to that fact. I opened our banking app and saw her name next to new transfer. It popped up under recent activity, small line, big gut punch. Money moved from our joint savings to a new account with her as primary. No conversation, no heads up, just done. I stared at the routing number and felt my jaw tighten. Another transaction sat right under it, labeled Zelle, same first name as the woman with the heart. I screenshotted everything before my courage dipped. Savings, transfer, that name. My hands shook while I cropped the images. It felt insane doing forensic work on my own marriage like this. Still, I kept going. I dug into older statements, little amounts first, then a few bigger ones, all heading in the same direction under different notes. Reimbursement, split cost, thanks again. You know that weird numb feeling when your body realizes the story before your brain does? That settled over me. This was not random generosity. This was support, steady, planned support. I opened her laptop, logged into her email with the password she had given me years ago, and typed the other woman's name into the search bar. Threads loaded faster than my stomach could handle. The first one that stood out had a subject line that made my temples throb. Budget once things are official. I clicked it with my thumb hovering above the trackpad like I could still back out. Inside was a neat list: rent estimates, utilities, groceries. One line underlined twice. I will probably still be on his insurance for a while. Another line: he is not ready to let go of the house, so we need a timeline. I scrolled down, heart pounding. Once I move my stuff in, we can finally stop sneaking, she had written. I just need him to agree to the no divorce plan a little longer. My chest went hot. There it was in plain text, not theory, not therapy hypotheticals, an actual schedule to phase me out as a husband and keep me on as a resource. Another email from the other woman sat right under it. I get that you need his coverage for now, she wrote. I am not judging. I just want to know when we can tell people you are mine. The words "you are mine" made my vision blur for a second. I leaned back from the screen and stared at the ceiling until my eyes cleared. I will be honest, for a moment I almost looked for some innocent angle. Maybe they were talking about a far future thing. Maybe it was just fantasy. But the dates killed that excuse. This conversation was only a few days after our therapist session. While I was still trying to wrap my head around open marriage, they were marking milestones in a shared future. A calendar invite sat in her inbox labeled lease meeting. Attendees, my wife, the other woman, a property agent. I clicked it. The notes field read, discuss move-in for September if finance is stable and he's still on board. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. I was apparently part of the budget, not part of the plan. My hands moved on their own at that point. I printed the emails. I printed the bank statement. The whir of the printer sounded way too loud in the quiet house. Each fresh page landing in the tray felt like another small nail. I stacked them, straightened the edges, and laid them on the kitchen table. Evidence, neat and pathetic. The front door opened while I was still staring at the pile. She walked in humming under her breath, then stopped when she saw the papers. Her eyes went straight from my face to the top page where her own words stared back at her. For a second, all the color drained from her cheeks. What is this? She asked, voice thin. You tell me, I answered. I gestured at the printouts. Budget once things are official, lease meeting, transfers. My finger landed on the line about insurance. I thought we were discussing possibilities. Turns out you already built the blueprint. She dropped her bag on a chair and reached for the top page. Her fingers trembled. You went through my email. It came out half accusation, half disbelief. I shrugged, more tired than guilty. You turned our marriage into a group project and forgot to copy me, I said. I got curious who you were actually including. She skimmed the email, eyes racing, then pressed her lips together. This looks worse than it is, she started. That sentence always means it is exactly as bad as it looks. We were just trying to figure out how life might look if, she trailed off when she hit the word mine on the page. Her shoulders dipped. Finish that, I pushed. If what? If I keep paying for the house while you move your relationship in somewhere else? If I keep my name on the insurance while you swap me out everywhere else? My voice rose with each sentence. You are not just coming out, you are rearranging me like a line item. She sank into the nearest chair, papers clutched in both hands. I panicked, she said, staring at the numbers. Money terrifies me. The idea of starting over from zero, it makes me feel like I am going to stop breathing. She tapped the transfer line. Helping her cover stuff now was stupid, I know, but I was trying to make a runway. A runway to where? I asked. I pulled out the other chair and sat down across from her. Because from here it looks like you are taxiing toward a cozy life with her while keeping me attached to your benefits. A bitter laugh slipped out. You literally wrote that. She flinched. I am not using you, she insisted, meeting my eyes. I care about you. I do not want to see you hurt. I do not want us ruined. I thought if I kept some things steady for both of us, it would make this less catastrophic. Her hand flattened the paper so hard it crinkled. Read that last paragraph again, I said. I pointed to her own sentence. I just need him to agree to the no divorce plan a little longer, she swallowed. You were not trying to spare me. You were trying to keep me in place until your other setup was ready. She opened her mouth, closed it, then let out a shaky breath. Yes, she admitted finally. I was scared you would pull the plug if you knew how serious it was getting with her. I did not want to lose everything at once. I wanted time. Her eyes filled. I am not proud of that. That is the part that still sticks under my skin, not the tears, not even the fear. The fact that she admits she wanted time and I was the clock she decided to control. That realization changed something in my spine. I sat up straighter and felt this cold clarity settle in. So the open marriage idea, I said slowly, that was never about us exploring together. That was your way of making what you had already done sound reasonable. I flicked the corner of one page. By the time you asked for my approval, you had money moving, meetings scheduled, and a woman calling dibs. She winced at calling dibs, which honestly pleased me a little. It did not start out that calculated, she said. It began with feelings I tried to deny, then they grew, then I realized I could not keep living half a life. She spread her hands helplessly. The practical stuff came after. I did not sit down one day and design this on a whiteboard. Maybe not, I replied, but you still put my future into spreadsheets with someone else before you had the guts to tell me the truth. I tapped the budget. Look at this. You have my assumed contribution highlighted, not hypothetical, not maybe, like a guarantee. She stared at the numbers, her face twisted in something like shame and anger mixed. I trusted that you would not abandon me, she said. That you would see I am still the person you married in many ways, that you would not throw me to the wolves because I finally came clean. There it was again, that word, trusted, not in me as a partner, in me as a cushion. You did not trust me, I answered. You gambled that I am so decent, so conflict avoidant that I would rather swallow this whole thing than be seen as cruel. I pointed at my chest. You bet on me not wanting to be the bad guy. She looked up sharply. Why is it bad to trust your spouse not to drop you when you are vulnerable? She asked. Her voice rose. I built this life with you. I gave years to this. I am allowed to want a soft landing. Not when your soft landing is built out of my blind loyalty, I shot back. You do not get to set up house with your girlfriend and treat my paycheck like alimony you never had to negotiate. My hands were on the table now, flat, firm. If you want a soft landing, you talk to me before you move pieces around, not after. We locked eyes for a long beat. Neither of us blinked. Finally, she broke first, looking away toward the hallway. What do you want then? She asked. Spell it out. You keep saying what you hate. What do you actually want to happen? That question caught me off guard. Up until then, most of my energy had gone into reacting to her next reveal, not envisioning an outcome of my own. I leaned back and inhaled slowly while my brain scrambled. Bare minimum, I said. The transfers stop. Any shared money stays where it is until we figure legal stuff out properly. Her head snapped back to me. So she just drowns, she asked. You know she is barely keeping up over there. Rent keeps going up. Food, gas, everything. You saw the budget. And I saw my name nowhere except under what you expect me to cover, I replied. She is not my responsibility. You are not my dependent. You are a grown woman making choices with another adult. If you two want a home together, you two fund it. She let out a low, frustrated sound. You are punishing me, she said. You are trying to hurt her to get back at me. She shook her head, eyes blazing. I thought you were kinder than that. That hit a nerve because she was right about one thing. I take pride in being kind, in being steady. I have always been the one who calms things down, patches things up, smooths edges. That role has been my whole identity in this relationship. Standing there, hearing her throw that in my face as a weapon, something flipped. Do not use my kindness as leverage, I said quietly. The quiet made her flinch more than shouting would have. You counted on that exact trait when you wrote these emails. You banked on me being too careful, too gentle, too worried about your comfort to ever draw a hard line. I pushed the papers toward her. Here it is, hard line. She stared down at the stack, her fingers hovered above it, then pulled back. So what, you want to split everything now? She asked. Call a lawyer, drain the savings, burn it all down. I want fairness, I replied, which might very well involve a lawyer, yes. I felt strangely calm when I said it. because clearly whatever we are doing now is not a partnership. It is me subsidizing your transition into a new life while you call it compromise." Her eyes filled again. She stood up so fast her chair screeched. "I cannot believe you would throw away all these years because you are mad about how this looked on paper," she snapped. "You are focusing on money instead of the fact that I am finally being honest about who I am." I stood too. We were only a couple of feet apart, breathing hard. "Yo. You keep selling honesty like a gift," I said. "Honesty is not a present when it rides in on a pile of lies. You were not honest. You were cornered." That landed. She recoiled like I had hit her. "You want me gone," she whispered. "Is that it? You want me to pack a bag and disappear so you can feel righteous?" I closed my eyes for a second. When I opened them, I forced myself to slow down. "I want information before I make that call," I answered. "From someone who is not your therapist and not your girlfriend, someone whose job is to look at this and tell me what my options are." I took a step back. The distance helped me breathe. "I am talking to an attorney." Her jaw dropped. Genuine shock, not performance. "You already made up your mind," she said. "Do not pretend this is exploration. Once you step into that office, you cannot unring that bell." "Maybe," I said, "but I also cannot unknow what I know now. You are planning a future with her. You are budgeting my role in it. You are asking me to sign off on a script where I play the safe, quiet, supporting character forever." I shook my head. "I am at least going to read the alternate script." She pressed her hands to her face and let out a muffled groan. "You are making a mistake," she said through her fingers. "We could have had something rare. We could have been grown-ups about this, not like those couples who blow everything up the second it gets hard." I moved toward the doorway. My chest still burned, but under the burn was a harder, cleaner feeling. Resolve. "I spent months being the grown-up while you played both sides," I answered. "Maybe it is time I try another role." I paused, hand on the doorway frame. "You wanted me to be the guy who stays no matter what. I am not sure that version of me exists anymore." I left her in the kitchen with the papers. Behind me, the house felt strangely quiet, not peaceful, just stripped down, like a stage after the props crew clears out. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed my keys and my jacket, and pulled out my phone. On the drive, I called a number a coworker had given me months earlier when his divorce went down. Back then, I saved it under some vague label and told myself I would never need it. Sitting in my car outside a strip of anonymous offices, I finally hit dial. Hearing the receptionist say the lawyer's name out loud made my hands shake again. "Do you have any openings this week?" I asked. My voice surprised me. It sounded steady, adult. "It is about a marriage separation. There are some financial complications." I listened as she checked the schedule. She offered a slot. I took it. When I hung up, I rested my head against the steering wheel and exhaled. For the first time in this whole mess, I had done something that was not a reaction to her latest revelation. It was my move, my choice. I wish I could tell you that felt good. It did not. It felt like standing on a high edge and realizing there is no railing anymore. But it was also the first moment I believed I might actually step off the path she laid out and build one of my own. I signed under petitioner before my hand could hesitate. The lawyer watched my pen move, then flipped the page toward her side. She walked me through each section in short, clipped sentences. "Assets, debts, support, no sugarcoating. From this moment," she said, tapping the packet, "you stop thinking like a spouse and start thinking like a person protecting their future." That line rattled around in my head like a loose screw. She asked about the affair, the timeline, the money transfers. I laid it out, trying not to sound like I was whining. She took notes in sharp strokes, asked for copies, circled a few key dates. "You have enough here to argue dissipation," she said, "which helps you in negotiations." I nodded, pretending that word made this feel less personal. Then came the part that hurt my ego. "Do you want to ask for support?" she asked. "Based on your incomes, you could." I almost laughed. "No," I said, "I am not taking a dime from her." The lawyer studied me for a moment. "Sometimes support is leverage, not revenge," she said. "You can always change your mind before we file." I still said no because stubborn pride has a loud voice. When we finished, she slid a folder toward me. "Once these are served, there is no going back to how things were," she said. "Even if you reconcile, you will both remember this." I knew that already. I nodded anyway. "Serve them," I answered. My voice came out calmer than I felt. Driving home, the folder rode in the passenger seat like a third person. I kept glancing at it at red lights, half expecting it to explode. Instead, it just sat there, quiet and heavy. I realized I was past the point where I could pretend this was a thought experiment. I had turned the key on something that would move whether I stayed brave or not. She was in the living room when I walked in, laptop open, phone beside her. She looked up, eyes wary, like she already sensed a shift. "You were gone a while," she said. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, waiting. "Work ran late," would have been my old reflex. I skipped it. "I met with an attorney," I said. The laptop lid dropped shut with a soft thud. Her shoulders stiffened. "You actually did it," she said, her mouth twisted. "I thought you were just trying to scare me." That admission told me exactly how seriously she had taken my last warning. "I am done threatening," I answered. "He has the paperwork. You will get served in the next few days." Saying it out loud made my pulse jump. I watched the words hit her face one after the other like small impacts. She stood abruptly, almost knocking the coffee table. "You are filing on me because I am gay," she snapped. "Do you realize how that sounds? Do you know how people will see you?" Her voice climbed higher with each question. "This is not about you being gay," I said. "This is about you cheating, hiding money, and planning a life with someone else while asking me to stay on the hook." I felt my jaw clench. Do not try to turn this into a bigotry story just because it is cleaner than what actually happened. She paced across the room, hands dragging through her hair. "You are blowing this up like I never cared," she said. "I kept this house running. I stood by you during your rough patches. I was not some monster playing you for fun." She faced me again. "We could have figured out a way to keep both." "You already kept both," I answered, "for months, without my consent." My voice stayed low, which somehow made her angrier. "This is me refusing to be the third wheel in my own marriage anymore." She stopped pacing and stared. "So that is it?" she asked. "Years together and you fold at the first major storm." The word fold hit me hard. She made it sound like I was weak for finally drawing a line. I stepped closer, just enough to make sure she could not dodge my eyes. "The storm was you sleeping with someone else while using our shared savings to plan your move," I said. "If that counts as first to you, we were never living in the same story." Tears spilled over now, fast and hot. "You would rather be alone than try something unconventional," she said. "Do you know how many people would kill for a partner who stays friends even after romance shifts?" Her voice shook. "We could have been proof that love looks different and still survives." "We could have," I said, "if love had stayed honest." I let that sit between us. "You did not come to me before any of this started. You came after you were already invested somewhere else. You are not asking for creativity. You are asking for retroactive forgiveness." She sank back onto the couch, defeated posture, hands hanging loose. "So what happens now?" she asked. "You just kick me out, change locks, toss my stuff." The way she said it, I could hear the story forming in her head already. Overbearing husband, heartless reaction. "I am not throwing you on the street," I replied. "The lawyer suggested we separate bedrooms and start dividing things while the case moves forward." I gestured toward the hall. "I will sleep in the guest room. We start making lists, furniture, accounts, all of it." She laughed once, harsh and disbelieving. "This is insane," she said. "We were talking about shared calendars a month ago. Now you are talking about itemizing our chairs." She pressed her palms into her eyes. "I do not even recognize you." "Maybe you never met this version," I said. "The one who does not bend until he breaks." I surprised myself with that sentence. It sounded dramatic, but it was also true. I had spent so long contorting myself to keep the peace that standing upright felt foreign. I grabbed a pillow and a couple of shirts and walked down the hallway. No suitcase, no big theatrics, just a quiet relocation down 10 feet of carpet. Still, that small distance might as well have been another zip code. Closing the guest room door behind me felt louder than any fight we had ever had. The first night in that bed, sleep barely touched me. Every creak in the house sounded like a decision. I pictured her on her side of the wall, phone in hand, typing out her version to the woman who had been waiting in the wings. I could almost hear it. "He overreacted. He cannot handle my truth. He is punishing us." I will not pretend I was noble. Part of me wanted to grab my own phone and blast my side to every friend we shared. Expose the messages, post the bank screenshots, paint her exactly how she had behaved. I drafted a long text to one of my closest buddies, thumb hovering over send, then erased it until the screen went blank. I was angry, but I was not ready to live online as the guy with the messy breakup. Not yet. The next morning, the silence between us had changed temperature, not just awkward, strategic. She moved around the kitchen with precise motions, answering me in short phrases when logistics forced us to speak. "Milk's out. Trash. Day, you using the car." Every word felt filtered, like we were coworkers in a hostile office. Around noon, my phone buzzed with an email from the lawyer. Service complete, the subject line read. I glanced at the timestamp, then at the living room. She sat on the couch staring at her own phone, jaw tight. A folded stack of papers lay on the coffee table. The sheriff had beaten the email. The look on her face said everything. "You really did it," she said without looking up. Her thumb hovered over her screen. "Congratulations, you get to be the one who left the poor queer woman right after she came out." Her tone dripped with sarcasm. "Enjoy being the villain." Something inside me clicked into place at that word. Villain. I had spent weeks scared of it, terrified of being the bad guy in everyone's retelling. Now, hearing her throw it out like a curse, I felt an odd calm. "If choosing not to live as your cover story makes me the villain," I said, "I can live with that." She finally met my eyes, stunned. "You do not even care how this looks," she asked. "What my family will think, what our friends will think. They will say you ditched me when I needed support." "I cared about that more than my own sanity for months," I replied. "I stayed in this house, slept next to you, listened to you talk about exploring with someone else because I did not want people to think I was cruel." I spread my hands. "That fear is why you thought you could plan my role without asking." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. No quick comeback this time. "So you are fine being alone?" she finally asked. "Fine starting over from scratch just so you do not have to share me?" There was almost disbelief in her voice, like solitude was worse than slow humiliation. "I am not fine," I said. "I am scared, I am angry, I am tired, but I would rather be alone in a place where the walls are not built on lies than share you in a house where I do not recognize myself." My throat tightened, but I forced the rest out. "I want a partner who chooses me without asterisks." The next weeks were a blur of practical cuts. We sat at the table dividing items like we were auctioning off a life. "You take the couch. I will keep the desk. You handle the power bill until the move date." Every object had a tiny argument attached. Every tiny argument carried a bigger one under it. Her friends started unfollowing me online. Small thing, but I noticed. Mutual acquaintances sent bland messages. "Heard you two are going through a lot. Hope you are okay." No one asked for details. No one offered to hear my version. That stung more than I expected. People like a simple story, and he dumped his wife after she came out, is an easy one to share over drinks. Once at the grocery store, I ran into someone who used to come to our backyard cookouts. She looked at the empty space beside me and raised her eyebrows. "So you really left," she said. "No hello, no how are you, just that. Must be nice not having to adjust to anything." I almost snapped. Instead, I just said, "Nothing about this is nice," and moved on. In the parking lot, sitting in my car with the bags on the seat, I realized that in most people's minds, this would always be a simple equation. Gay revelation plus straight spouse equals inevitable split. The messy middle of betrayal and planning and budgets would never make it into their version. On move-out day, the house felt strangely hollow even before a single box left. She had found a place that allowed short-term leases. I knew without asking that the other woman would be there a lot, if not immediately. We carried furniture down the steps in tense silence, only speaking to avoid injuries. "Watch your side, tilt it, door." At one point, we both ended up in the kitchen, just the two of us, no objects to focus on. She leaned against the counter, arms folded tight, eyes fixed on the floor. "You know I did love you," she said quietly. "Not the way you wanted, not enough, but it was real." I believed her in a sad way. That did not change anything. "I believe you cared," I answered, "and I believe you cared more about not falling than about whether you were pushing me toward the edge." That was the closest I could get to grace without lying. She blinked fast, then straightened. "I hope someday you see that I was trying to survive too," she said, "even if I did it badly." She grabbed a box and walked out before I could answer. That might be the last honest sentence she ever gave me. My new place was small, quiet, and smelled like fresh paint. No shared history in the walls. No phantom weight on the other side of the bed. The first night, I ate takeout on the floor and scrolled through my phone, thumb hovering over old photos, then tossing it aside like it was hot. Lying there, staring at a blank ceiling that had never seen our fights or our laughter, I realized something that still feels uncomfortable to admit. I was grieving two different things. The person I thought she was and the person I had been while I tried to keep that version alive. That second loss hit harder than I expected. People like to tell clean stories, heroes and villains, clear lines. If you want that version, here it is. My wife came out, said she did not love me, wanted to keep our marriage on paper while she dated a woman I was funding by accident, and I refused. In that movie, I am either the heartless straight guy or the man who finally grew a spine, depending on which seat you pick. From where I sat on that empty floor, it felt less like a movie and more like waking up after a long sleep in the wrong bed. I had spent years being the safe option, the steady ground. In the end, I chose to be the one who walked away instead of the one who quietly stayed and disappeared. If that makes me the villain in her story, then fine. In mine, I am just the man who stopped agreeing to a role he never auditioned for and finally stepped off a stage that was already collapsing.